I've been thinking a lot about the structure of schools lately, and the reality is, I'm starting to really come to terms with the idea that we need a complete factory reset in education, because we are still running a system. While the standards change and they're improving a little bit, but the school itself still feels like it's developed for an era that is no longer with us. And it kind of is. I mean, yeah, we have some technology in, and a lot of the joy has been sucked out of school buildings. I mean, I know that for a fact. And one of our big goals here in this district is to bring some joy back, or try to. It's really hard to do sometimes because there's so much pressure and stress, and like teachers get villainized through the you know things that are posted online, and so it's really sad. But the reality is, our system is created for an era when there was little access to information, and now everybody has a supercomputer in their pocket. But the problem is that we don't teach kids how to be efficient and ethical when it comes to using technology. We don't teach kids at all about um, making sure that they understand what they read online isn't real. Like, we may mention it, but it should be a main core factor in what we do. So for me, you know, I talk to teachers all the time, and I think about education. I research education all the time. That's like what I do, one of my major jobs. And the reality is, my middle school teachers all tell me the same thing. Our kids can't read or write, and they can't do any like simple math operations. And that's all I hear. I don't hear they can't do geometry. I never, ever hear that in 7, 8, 9, 10 years of an instructional leadership as an instructional coach, principal, assistant principal, director of curriculum. I have never heard that. So that's because everything builds on those elements. So in elementary school, why aren't we, instead of having everything built like we've always had it built, where kids are sitting in individual classrooms with different subjects that are segregated? We got math and science and social studies and writing and reading and blah, 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 blah. Why are we not looking at what we want our kids to be? Because we always talk about the graduates, but what we want them to do and what we want them to be. But we haven't really looked at that and really come across a consensus in a long time. But we only look at that like graduating from high school. So why aren't we looking at it like an elementary school? What do we want them to do? Well, the reality is, if they can add, subtract, multiply, and divide across all sections and have number sense, it wouldn't matter if they didn't know geometry, because when you go to teach geometry in seventh grade, you could just teach those beginner level skills that you missed in elementary school at the seventh grade level. And because they can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, which is again all I ever hear about, it's never like, well, they don't understand, a triangle. It's always they can't add the corners. They don't know how to add to make 90 degrees. So that's the problem. It's never the stuff that's being taught conceptually uh, beyond the number sense problems. So why is an elementary school more about prepping for the future? And again, make sure that everybody can read at a grade level, and do that by reading books all the time. That's one of the big indicators of whether or not a kid's going to have literacy. To be literate, is, are they exposed to reading? Are they exposed to text? Nowadays, our curriculum only uses snippets of text. They're not following characters and journeys and enjoying reading. They're not doing that anymore. The corporate curriculum has kind of sucked that out of it. One of the reasons why we wrote a 6 through 12 ELA curriculum that's novel based is because of that research. Um, have them read, have them write about their reading, have them keep a journal, have them write for fun, have them have, and I know there's some people out there that hate this, and I've seen it used ineffectively, but do a free write Friday where they can write whatever they want for 30 minutes on a Friday. Work on handwriting. No, not cursive. No, I don't really. I know that there's a boomer generation thing going on where they think if they bring back cursive, that it'll save everything. But the reality is, um, there's no research out there that shows 100% that cursive is the answer. There's a lot of research that says handwriting and increasing handwriting is good, and shows and does well for kids, but it never specifies whether it's print or cursive. We don't write in Old English. We don't use quills anymore. In this modern generation, you don't need cursive. You need to know how to sign your name, but nowadays everybody's typing on a computer. So it's more important that we teach people how to print, how to write and take notes, how to sketch things out, because that's how people in the real world work. Not, I'm a millennial who knows how to read and write cursive. I still use print because for me it's faster. And again, studies show that research that it goes faster, or it doesn't go faster. It's the same. It just depends on what you like, cursive and print. So why aren't we looking at elementary like that? Using technology as a tool, like instead of it being, we have this conversation about screen time. It's not about screen time. It's about the quality of the screen time. And students are not using technology the way workers use technology. We should be solving problems. And in elementary school, again, you know, we got to start talking about AI. We have to. We have to start talking about it. Ethics, the ethics of it, and how to use it effectively, and how to use it without giving up your autonomy. Like we need to start young. Our education system is falling further and further behind because we're not keeping up with the times. When you leave elementary school, you should be able to read, write, add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Science and social studies should no longer be segregated subjects where it's like science recall. Like, a lot of the science standards that are out there are recall based. Why do you need recall based facts? I know there's a big joke about people having to know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. No one needs to know that. That's trivia. Why are we teaching our kids trivia? Instead, teach them how to find peer reviewed articles, or teach them how to go to NASA, or a legitimate source and read about those things, read and write about those things. You don't have to recall facts to be efficient in science, especially since you have that information at your fingertips. Same with social studies. Kids in elementary school aren't they don't understand the context of World War II enough to really talk about it. So why are we talking about World War II in fourth grade? They're not going to hit the Holocaust. Not going to talk about the horrors of World War II. And if they do, they're not going to understand it or have the ability to really understand why those things were horrifying. And so why aren't we teaching civics like in elementary? Like here are your rights as an American. Here are these documents that are really important that you should read. Here's, you know, uh, how to be good people. How to talk about feelings, and how to handle conflict appropriately. Bring back those citizenship lessons. Bring back those, fun. I can't remember the name of a junior achievement where they did. We talked about jobs and explore jobs at an early age. Like bring back those things. Like we don't need these recall based standards anymore, where we have to just give them trivia responses. And once they hit middle school, if they can hit all those other elements are going to be so much better. But in middle school, you have a gap. You need to be preparing for high school, but you need to start exposing them to some of these pathways that are potential for them, and then also you can use that time to bridge the gaps for those things that were missed in elementary. So when they hit high school, once again, they can read, they can write, they can do all these things. And then high school is all about finding their pathway. We need to make high schools more expansive. We need to give kids opportunities. That's not just, you know, you can either go to college or not. We do need to have certificate programs in high schools. We need to expand that. We brought that to small rural villages in Alaska. You can do it anywhere. And our high schools need to be preparing kids to function in the real world. So that means re-examining how we do things and examining how companies and corporations and expect our kids to work. Right now, we are having governments and business officers say we need AI literate kids already. In schools, we aren't even touching it. And I do have ethical issues with AI for sure. But I also understand that it's not going back. It'll never go back. And we need to teach kids about the ethics of it. We need to teach kids how to use it without giving up their autonomy. I just think it's time for full on education reform, full on change, full on model. It's just something that we need to do. And I'm sorry I got in here and ranted about it, but it's been heavy on my heart because I see our kids falling farther and farther behind, and we're not doing the things that we need to do. We're trying our best, the educators are. But the reality is, we can't break up we can't break up the system of education, and we have to follow the standards, we have to do the things. But the reality is, uh, we're doing everything we can, but we're not doing everything we can as a society to make education actually work for what we do. Um, I'm gonna talk and post more about education and what's going on, and try to maybe talk these things out. I love hearing people's feedback and advice. Hopefully, I won't make 10-minute videos every time, but if you made it to the end, I appreciate it. Like and subscribe, and hopefully we can get talking about education a little bit more if you're interested. So thanks.